Discussion per Part 1. The ordinary life in a small, quiet town surrounded by green hills and endless fields of golden wheat. There lived a young girl named Emily Carter. Her life was simple, almost invisible to the world outside her tiny home. She wasn't wealthy or famous. She didn't have fancy clothes or expensive gadgets like some of the other kids in school. Instead, Emily spent most of her days helping her mother, Sarah Carter, who worked as a cleaner at the local community center. Sarah was a hard-working woman with calloused hands and tired eyes. Every day, she scrubbed floors, polished windows, and emptied trash cans so that others could enjoy clean spaces. It wasn't glamorous work, but it paid the bills. And for Sarah, that was enough. Emily admired her mother deeply. Despite their struggles, Sarah always had a kind word and a warm smile for everyone she met. Still, Emily couldn't help but notice how worn out her mother looked when she came home each evening. Sometimes Emily wished she could take away some of her mom's burdens, but all she could do was cook dinner and keep their little house tidy. Emily's favorite place in the entire house was the attic. It was dark and dusty, filled with old boxes of forgotten belongings. One rainy afternoon, while exploring the attic, Emily stumbled upon something unusual, an old guitar lying under a pile of blankets. Its surface was scratched, and one of the strings was loose, but it still looked beautiful to her. Curious, she picked it up and ran her fingers over its wooden body. Where did this come from? Whose was it? When she showed it to her mother later that evening, Sarah smiled faintly. "Oh, that belonged to your grandfather," she said. "He used to play it when I was little, but after he passed away, we put it away. I forgot it was even here." Emily's heart skipped a beat. A real guitar? She had never seen one up close before, let alone touched one. That night, she carried the instrument back to her room, determined to learn more about it. At first, playing the guitar seemed impossible. Emily had no idea what she was doing. Her fingers fumbled awkwardly on the strings, producing sounds that were anything but musical. Neighbors often heard strange noises coming from her window and wondered what was going on. Some laughed, thinking it sounded like cats fighting. But Emily didn't care. There was something magical about holding the guitar, feeling its weight against her chest, hearing the vibrations of the strings echo through her small bedroom. To improve, Emily turned to YouTube videos. Late at night, after her homework was done and her mother had gone to bed, she would sit cross-legged on her bed with her laptop open, watching tutorials on basic chords and strumming techniques. At first, progress was slow. Frustration bubbled inside her whenever she made mistakes, but she refused to give up. Slowly, very slowly, her clumsy attempts began to transform into actual notes. One evening, as rain pattered softly against her window, Emily managed to play her first complete song, a simple melody she had learned online. Tears welled up in her eyes as the final note rang out. For the first time, she understood why people loved music so much. It wasn't just about making noise. It was about expressing feelings words couldn't capture. As weeks turned into months, Emily practiced tirelessly. She started experimenting with different songs, trying to add her own touch to them. Sometimes she sang along quietly, too shy to let anyone hear her voice. Other times she played purely for herself, letting the music wash away the worries of daily life. Playing the guitar became her escape, her secret world where nothing else mattered. Outside her room, however, life remained unchanged. To most people in town, Emily was still the cleaner's kid, a quiet, unremarkable teenager who blended into the background. Few knew about her hidden talent, and even fewer cared. At school, she sat silently in class, avoiding attention. During lunch breaks, she stayed in the library, reading books or sketching pictures in her notebook. Occasionally, classmates teased her for being poor or having secondhand clothes, but Emily ignored them. She didn't need their approval. What kept her going was the thought of someday surprising everyone, not because she wanted revenge or validation, but because she believed deep down that she had something special to share. Music gave her hope. It reminded her that even though her life might seem ordinary now, extraordinary things could happen if she dared to dream big. Little did Emily know, her chance to shine was closer than she imagined. All it would take was one moment, one opportunity to change everything. Until then, she continued practicing in secret, pouring her heart into every note, waiting patiently for the day when the world would finally hear her song. And somewhere, in the distance beyond the rolling hills and starlit skies, destiny was already stirring. The Harvest Festival was the highlight of the year in Emily's small town. Every autumn, people from miles around gathered at the community center to celebrate the season with music, food, and laughter. The streets came alive with colorful decorations. The smell of roasted corn filled the air, and children ran around with sticky fingers clutching candy apples. It was a time for joy, community, and forgetting life's troubles, if only for a day. For Emily, the festival had always been bittersweet. On one hand, she loved seeing her neighbors come together in such a lively way. On the other hand, it reminded her of how invisible she felt compared to everyone else. While others danced under the twinkling fairy lights or joined in singing along to popular songs, Emily usually stayed on the sidelines, watching quietly. This year, however, something felt different. Sarah, Emily's mother, had finished her shift early that evening and decided to bring Emily along to enjoy the festivities. "You've been working so hard lately," Sarah said with a smile as they walked through the crowded streets. "Tonight's about having fun, okay?" Emily nodded but couldn't shake the nervous flutter in her chest. She wasn't used to being in large crowds, especially not without her guitar to hide behind. As they approached the main stage, a local band was finishing its set. People clapped politely, though their energy seemed to wane as the music ended. The MC stepped forward, microphone in hand, and announced the next segment, an open mic session. He encouraged anyone brave enough to step up and showcase their talent, promising applause no matter what. At first, silence fell over the crowd. No one moved toward the stage. Emily glanced around, noticing the hesitation on people's faces. Some whispered among themselves, debating whether to take the risk. Others simply shook their heads and looked away. Then, almost without realizing it, Emily felt her feet shifting forward. Her heart raced as she raised her hand slightly, signaling that she wanted to perform. "Is someone volunteering?" the MC asked, scanning the audience. His eyes landed on Emily, who stood frozen like a deer caught in headlights. Before she could change her mind, Sarah nudged her gently. "Go on, sweetheart," she whispered. "Show them what you can do." With trembling legs, Emily made her way to the stage. Whispers rippled through the crowd as people noticed her approach. Most recognized her as the cleaner's kid, and curiosity buzzed in the air. What could she possibly have to offer? Some smirked, assuming she'd embarrass herself. Others leaned closer, intrigued by her quiet confidence, or perhaps just eager for entertainment. When Emily reached the microphone, she paused to adjust the stand, her hands shaking visibly. The spotlight blinded her, making it impossible to see individual faces in the audience. For a moment, panic threatened to overwhelm her. What if she messed up? What if everyone laughed? But then she remembered all those nights spent practicing, alone in her room, pouring her soul into every note. This was her chance to share that part of herself, the part she'd kept hidden for so long. Taking a deep breath, Emily began to play. The opening chords were soft but steady, cutting through the murmurs of the crowd like a knife. As her fingers moved across the strings, a hush fell over the gathering. Heads turned toward the stage, eyes widening in surprise. Emily closed her eyes, letting the music guide her. Slowly, she started to sing, a voice clear and hauntingly beautiful, carrying emotions too raw to be contained in mere words. The song she chose was one she had written herself, inspired by the struggles and dreams of her own life. Each lyric painted a vivid picture of longing, hope, and resilience. The melody swelled and dipped, wrapping itself around the listeners like a warm embrace. By the second verse, tears glistened in some people's eyes. Couples held each other tighter, children stopped running around, and even the skeptics found themselves captivated. Time seemed to stand still as Emily poured her heart into the performance. When the final note faded into silence, no one spoke. For a few seconds, there was nothing but the sound of crickets chirping in the background. Then, as if waking from a trance, the crowd erupted into thunderous applause. People cheered, whistled, and stomped their feet, overwhelmed by what they had just witnessed. Emily blinked, startled by the reaction. She hadn't expected this. Not in her wildest dreams. Shyly, she bowed her head and stepped back from the microphone, her cheeks flushed red. The MC returned to the stage, grinning widely. "Ladies and gentlemen, give it up once more for Emily Carter," he shouted, prompting another wave of cheers. Back in the audience, Sarah stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. She had known her daughter was talented, but hearing her play in front of so many people left her speechless. Pride swelled in her chest as she realized how far Emily had come, from practicing secretly in their attic to captivating an entire town with her music. After the show, strangers approached Emily to congratulate her. Some praised her voice, calling it angelic. Others complimented her guitar skills, saying they'd never heard anything like it before. Even classmates who had once teased her now looked at her with newfound respect. For the first time in her life, Emily felt seen, not as the cleaner's kid, but as someone extraordinary. That night, as mother and daughter walked home together, under the starlit sky, Sarah wrapped an arm around Emily's shoulders. "I'm so proud of you," she said softly. Emily smiled, still processing everything that had happened. Deep down, she knew her journey was just beginning. Little did she realize, however, that her performance had sparked something much bigger than local admiration. Someone in the audience had recorded her song and uploaded it online. Within hours, the video went viral, spreading far beyond the borders of their sleepy little town. And soon the world would discover the girl with the guitar who left everyone speechless. Part 3. Word spreads like wildfire. The morning after the Harvest Festival, Emily woke up to an unfamiliar sound, her phone buzzing relentlessly on her bedside table. At first, she thought it was a prank or maybe a wrong number. But when she reached for the device, her heart skipped a beat. Notifications flooded her screen, missed calls, text messages, and social media alerts from people she didn't even know. Confused, Emily opened one of the notifications. It led her to a video posted online, a shaky recording of her performance from the night before. Someone in the audience had captured her entire set and uploaded it with the caption, "This girl will blow your mind." The comments section was already exploding with reactions. "Who is this angel?" one person wrote. Another added, "I've never heard anything so beautiful in my life." Others begged for more information. "What's her name? Where is she from? Can we hear more songs?" Emily stared at the screen, her hands trembling. She had always dreamed of sharing her music with the world, but she never imagined it would happen like this. Her quiet little town suddenly felt too small to contain her newfound fame. Within hours, the video had thousands of views, then tens of thousands. By lunchtime, it had reached hundreds of thousands, and the numbers kept climbing. Word spread quickly. Local news outlets picked up the story, dubbing Emily the mysterious guitar prodigy who had stunned an entire town with her voice. Reporters called her house, asking for interviews. Neighbors knocked on their door, congratulating Sarah and marveling at how talented her daughter was. Even teachers at Emily's school couldn't stop talking about her. One teacher joked during class, "Looks like we've got a future superstar in our midst," but not everyone reacted positively. Some classmates whispered behind her back, accusing her of seeking attention or faking humility. A few sneered that she'd only gotten lucky, dismissing her talent as a fluke. Emily tried to ignore them, focusing instead on the overwhelming support she received from strangers online. Fans sent her heartfelt messages, sharing how her song had touched them deeply. Some said her music reminded them of loved ones they'd lost. Others claimed it gave them hope during tough times. Reading these comments made Emily feel connected to people she'd never met, reinforcing why she loved making music in the first place. As the days passed, opportunities began pouring in. Record labels reached out, offering contracts and promising to make her a household name. Talent scouts emailed her, inviting her to audition for prestigious music competitions. Concert promoters asked if she'd consider performing at larger venues. Each offer seemed more exciting than the last, leaving Emily both thrilled and overwhelmed. Sarah, ever the voice of reason, helped her navigate the chaos. Sitting at their kitchen table one evening, they went through the emails together. "Take your time," Sarah advised gently. "Don't rush into anything. This is your dream, not theirs." Emily nodded, grateful for her mother's wisdom. Despite the whirlwind surrounding her, Sarah reminded her to stay grounded, to remember where she came from and who she truly was beneath all the noise. Finally, after much deliberation, Emily signed with a reputable record label known for nurturing young artists. They promised to give her creative freedom while helping her grow professionally. For the first time since the video went viral, Emily felt a sense of direction. She wasn't just riding a wave of fleeting fame. She was building a foundation for something lasting. Her debut single was released within months, a haunting ballad inspired by her journey growing up in a working-class family. Titled Invisible No More, the song resonated deeply with listeners worldwide. Critics praised its raw emotion and authenticity, calling it a masterpiece born from struggle. Within weeks, it climbed the charts, reaching #1 in multiple countries. Radio stations played it constantly, and streaming platforms reported millions of plays daily. Fans couldn't get enough of Emily. Her face appeared on magazine covers, billboards, and television screens. Talk show hosts invited her onto their programs, eager to learn more about the shy teenager who had captured hearts overnight. During interviews, Emily spoke candidly about her humble beginnings, crediting her mother for teaching her resilience and kindness. "I'm still the same person I was before," she told one interviewer. "Just because I'm playing bigger stages doesn't mean I've forgotten where I came from." Despite her rapid rise to stardom, Emily remained humble. She continued practicing every day, determined to improve her craft. Fame hadn't changed her core values. It had only amplified them. When fans approached her in public, she greeted them warmly, taking time to sign autographs and take photos. To many, she became a symbol of hope, proving that greatness could emerge from anywhere if you believed in yourself. However, fame also brought challenges. Paparazzi followed her wherever she went, snapping pictures and speculating about her personal life. Tabloids published exaggerated stories, twisting innocent moments into scandalous headlines. Emily struggled to adjust to the lack of privacy, often feeling like she was living under a microscope. Worse still, some critics dismissed her success as a passing trend, predicting she'd fade away once the initial hype died down. Through it all, Sarah remained her rock. Whenever Emily doubted herself, her mother reminded her of the power of her music. "You're here because you have something real to say," Sarah told her one night. "Don't let anyone take that away from you." These words became Emily's mantra, guiding her through moments of self-doubt and fear. By the end of the year, Emily's life had transformed completely. From being labeled just a cleaner's kid, she had become a global sensation. Yet she knew her journey was far from over. Every note she played carried a piece of her soul, connecting her to people across languages, cultures, and borders. And though the spotlight shone brightly upon her, Emily vowed to use her platform wisely, to inspire others, to give back, and to remind the world that even the quietest voices can leave the loudest echoes. Little did she know, the best was yet to come. Emily's life became a whirlwind of activity. Days that were once filled with quiet moments in her attic now revolved around packed schedules, photo shoots, rehearsals, and interviews. She traveled from city to city, performing in front of thousands of people who sang along to her songs as if they'd known them for years. Her name lit up billboards, her face graced magazine covers, and her music played on radios around the world. But behind the dazzling lights and roaring applause, Emily faced challenges she hadn't anticipated. At first, everything seemed like a dream come true. Fans greeted her with flowers and handmade signs at concerts, cheering wildly whenever she stepped onto the stage. Strangers approached her in airports or grocery stores, thanking her for inspiring them through her lyrics. One young girl handed her a drawing of Emily holding her guitar, saying, "You make me believe I can do anything." Moments like these reminded Emily why she had started playing music in the first place. to connect with others and share emotions. Words alone couldn't express, but fame came with its own set of difficulties. The constant attention made it hard for Emily to feel like herself anymore. Everywhere she went, cameras followed. Reporters hounded her for details about her personal life, inventing stories when she refused to answer. Some tabloids claimed she was dating celebrities she'd never even met. Others accused her of being ungrateful or arrogant. It hurt to see lies printed about her, but what bothered her most was how little control she had over her own narrative. Her relationships also began to change. Back home, some old friends grew distant, unsure of how to act around someone who was suddenly famous. A few classmates who had teased her in school now tried to cozy up to her, hoping to benefit from her success. Even within her family, there were tensions. While Sarah remained supportive, some distant relatives expected favors or money now that Emily was earning so much. At times, Emily felt isolated, unsure of whom to trust. The pressure to keep succeeding weighed heavily on her shoulders. After the massive success of her debut single, everyone expected her next release to be equally groundbreaking. Producers urged her to experiment with trendy sounds, insisting that staying relevant meant appealing to younger audiences. But Emily resisted. She didn't want to compromise her authenticity for fleeting popularity. Music was her way of telling her story, and she wasn't willing to let anyone else write it for her. Despite these struggles, Emily found strength in her mother's advice. Sarah often reminded her, "Success isn't measured by how many awards you win or how much money you make. It's about staying true to yourself and using your gifts to help others." These words became Emily's guiding light during moments of doubt. To stay grounded, Emily returned to her roots whenever possible. Between tours, she visited her hometown, walking through familiar streets and sitting in her favorite spots near the riverbank. She spent hours practicing in her attic, just as she had done before anyone knew her name. Sometimes, late at night, she would call Sarah and talk about their dreams for the future. These conversations helped Emily remember who she truly was beneath the glitz and glamour. Her second album marked a turning point in her career. Titled From Dust to Stars, it featured deeply personal songs inspired by her journey, from growing up in poverty to navigating the complexities of fame. Critics hailed it as a masterpiece, praising its honesty and emotional depth. Tracks like Mother's Hands and Echoes of Home struck a chord with listeners, becoming anthems for anyone who had ever felt overlooked or underestimated. One song in particular stood out. Called The Attic, it told the story of discovering her grandfather's guitar and learning to play it despite countless failures. The lyrics captured both the frustration and joy of chasing a dream against all odds. When Emily performed it live for the first time, the audience erupted into applause before the final note even faded. Many fans later shared videos of themselves crying while listening to the song, saying it reminded them of their own battles with self-doubt. With each new milestone, Emily's confidence grew. She learned to navigate the complexities of fame, setting boundaries with paparazzi and speaking openly about the importance of mental health. In interviews, she encouraged aspiring musicians to persevere, reminding them that rejection and failure were part of the process. "Don't let fear stop you," she said during one talk show appearance. "If I can go from playing in my attic to performing in arenas, then anyone can achieve their dreams if they work hard enough." As her career soared, Emily also began thinking about ways to give back. Growing up poor had taught her the value of community support, and she wanted to pay it forward. Inspired by her own struggles, she launched a foundation aimed at providing underprivileged children access to arts education. Through her organization, she donated instruments to schools, funded scholarships for talented students, and created mentorship programs connecting young artists with professionals in the industry. Her efforts quickly gained traction. News outlets highlighted her philanthropy, calling her a role model for a new generation. Teachers reported seeing increased interest in music classes after her visits to local schools. Students wrote letters thanking her for believing in them and giving them opportunities they might not have had otherwise. For Emily, this was the greatest reward of all. Not the trophies or accolades, but the knowledge that she was making a difference in people's lives. By the time she turned 20, Emily had achieved what many artists spent decades striving for. She had won prestigious awards, headlined international tours, and earned millions of loyal fans. Yet she refused to rest on her laurels. Instead, she continued pushing herself creatively, experimenting with new styles, and collaborating with other musicians. Her third album, released shortly after her 20th birthday, showcased her growth as an artist while staying true to her signature sound. Through it all, Emily remained humble. Despite her fame, she still called her mother every day to check in and ask for advice. She still practiced tirelessly, knowing that talent without effort was meaningless. And she still believed in the power of music to heal, inspire, and unite people across divides. Looking back on her journey, Emily realized how far she had come since those quiet evenings in her attic. From being labeled just a cleaner's kid to becoming a global icon, she had proven that greatness could emerge from anywhere, if you dared to dream big and work hard. But even as she celebrated her accomplishments, she knew her story was far from over. There were still dreams to chase, songs to write, and lives to touch. And somewhere deep inside, Emily smiled, knowing that no matter where her path led next, she would always carry the lessons of her past and the hope of her future with her. Wancroc Cree Part 5. Legacy beyond music years past, and Emily Carter's name became synonymous with inspiration. Her concerts were no longer just performances. They were events that brought people together from all walks of life. Fans traveled across continents to see her live, often arriving hours early just to soak in the atmosphere. When she stepped onto the stage, dressed in her signature simple outfits, the crowd erupted into cheers so loud it felt like the ground shook beneath their feet. But what truly set Emily apart wasn't just her talent, it was the way she used her platform to uplift others. By her late 20s, Emily had released 5 critically acclaimed albums, each one exploring different facets of her journey. From heartbreak and resilience to love and gratitude, her songs spoke to universal human experiences. Critics praised her ability to evolve as an artist while staying true to her authentic self. Emily Carter isn't just a musician, one reviewer wrote. She's a storyteller who reminds us of our shared humanity. But Emily knew that music alone couldn't solve the world's problems. As her fame grew, so did her desire to create lasting change. She expanded her foundation, which she had named Voices Unheard, to reach even more communities. Through partnerships with schools, governments, and nonprofit organizations, she built music programs in underserved areas, giving children access to instruments, lessons, and opportunities they might never have had otherwise. One of Emily's proudest achievements was opening a free arts academy in her hometown. The building stood where the old community center once was, a place where Sarah had spent countless hours cleaning floors. Now, instead of mops and buckets, its halls echoed, with laughter, melodies, and creativity. Students learned everything from guitar and piano to painting and dance, guided by professional mentors who volunteered their time. On the day of the grand opening, Sarah stood beside Emily, tears streaming down her face. "You've done something incredible here," she whispered. For Emily, the academy represented more than just a project. It symbolized hope for future generations. Many of the students came from families struggling financially, much like hers had been when she was younger. Seeing them discover their passions reminded her of herself as a teenager, practicing late at night in her attic. She made it a point to visit the academy regularly, sitting in on classes and encouraging the kids. "Don't be afraid to fail," she told them during one session. "Every mistake is a step closer to finding your voice." Her philanthropy extended beyond music education. Recognizing the mental health struggles faced by many young artists, Emily launched a campaign called Artists for Wellness. It provided resources such as counseling services, workshops, and peer support groups specifically tailored for creatives. She openly discussed her own battles with anxiety and imposter syndrome, breaking down stigmas around seeking help. "Being strong doesn't mean you don't need support," she said during a TED Talk. "It means knowing when to ask for it." As her influence grew, Emily became a global advocate for social causes. She performed at charity events raising funds for climate action, racial equality, and refugee aid. Her song One World, written after visiting a refugee camp, became an anthem for unity and compassion. Proceeds from the track went directly to organizations helping displaced families rebuild their lives. People marveled at how seamlessly Emily blended activism with artistry, using her voice not only to entertain but also to inspire meaningful change. Despite her accomplishments, Emily remained deeply connected to her roots. Every Christmas she returned to her hometown to spend time with Sarah and volunteer at local shelters. Neighbors still greeted her warmly, treating her like the girl next door rather than an international superstar. Children ran up to her asking if she'd sign their guitars or take selfies. Emily always obliged, smiling patiently and making each person feel special. When Sarah passed away peacefully in her sleep at the age of 72, Emily took a brief hiatus from touring to grieve. Losing her mother was devastating, but it also reinforced Emily's commitment to honoring Sarah's legacy. In her next album, titled Home Again, she dedicated several tracks to her mom, weaving memories of their time together into poignant lyrics. The title track, Sarah's Song, moved audiences to tears and became one of her most beloved compositions. By the time Emily turned 35, she decided to retire from touring. While she continued writing and recording music, she shifted her focus entirely to her foundation and advocacy work. Her final concert tour, aptly named The Last Encore, sold out arenas worldwide. Fans packed stadiums, holding signs that read, "Thank you, Emily, and forever our star." During the last show held in her hometown's newly renovated stadium, Emily fought back tears as she addressed the crowd. "I never imagined I'd stand here today," she said, her voice trembling. "When I picked up that old guitar in my attic, I didn't know if anyone would ever hear me play. But you did. You listened, and you believed in me, even when I doubted myself. Because of you, I've been able to give back, to show other dreamers that anything is possible, so thank you for everything." The audience responded with a standing ovation that lasted nearly 10 minutes. As confetti rained down and fireworks lit up the sky, Emily played one last song, a heartfelt rendition of Invisible No More. By the end, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. In the years that followed, Emily devoted herself fully to mentoring the next generation of artists. She hosted master classes, judged talent competitions, and collaborated with emerging musicians eager to learn from her experience. Her philosophy was simple. Success isn't about how high you climb, it's about lifting others up along the way. Decades later, long after Emily had retired completely from public life, her impact endured. Streets were named after her, museums displayed her guitars, and schools included her story in their curriculums. Countless musicians cited her as their inspiration, crediting her with showing them that greatness could come from anywhere. Yet perhaps her greatest legacy was the ripple effect of kindness she created. Thousands of children who had walked through the doors of her arts academy grew up to become teachers, doctors, activists, and yes, even musicians. Each carried a piece of Emily's spirit with them, spreading her message of hope and resilience wherever they went. On quiet evenings, Emily could often be found sitting on her porch, strumming her guitar under the stars. Though her hair had grayed and her hands weren't as steady as they used to be, her love for music remained unchanged. Sometimes she thought about her journey, from being just a cleaner's kid to becoming a global icon, and smiled. She had proven that dreams weren't reserved for the privileged few. They belonged to anyone brave enough to chase them, regardless of where they started. And though her name would fade from headlines someday, her music, and the lives it touched, would echo forever. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues across the field she had grown up in, Emily closed her eyes and let the melody carry her home. For in the end, she realized her story wasn't just hers, it belonged to everyone who had ever dared to dream.